Okay, so for today's showcase, we got a couple different things to show off. Particularly, we just finished nature, so nature's completely done, which I'm very excited about. We've been doing some thinking on sound magic, and the last spot that's going to go there, so I'll share some of that thought with you guys. We've also nearly nailed down an artist for the outfits. As I've said a couple times, it's just an incredibly tedious thing. Thankfully, I realized it does not cost $500 or $600 per outfit, which is pretty outrageous. However, when you recognize how much time goes into it and how tedious that time is, I mean, not completely out of the ballpark. So it's still going to be pretty expensive, but I'm looking to find an artist who's willing to do it. And obviously, I don't want to use our current artists if they aren't willing to do so, because obviously it kind of drains your creative juice. So that's something I'm working on still, and I'm getting closer by the day. So hold out hope for that. Um, there are a couple other things as well. I believe there's another spell that I want to show off as well. I can't recall. Oh, it's Light. Light has a new spell, so Between the Waves is in Light now. And I think that one's pretty interesting. It's not super exciting, but I think the concept is at least, fitting for the tree. So for right now, that's going to be what Between the Waves is. It's probably going to be tweaked a bunch. And I mean, even for the other spells, they're still going to be tweaked a bunch. Even for ones that I haven't made recently, obviously every spell is going to be tweaked a bunch, so don't take stuff too seriously. Um, there is one thing I want to show off first, though, and I am going to warn you guys, it does lag quite a bit, and I can't tell you why. This is something people talked about just a couple minutes ago in the chat. Basically, two things, two purposes. So, one, it's kind of annoying when someone's behind, say, a tent or something, and you can't see them, and they're just spying on your RP. And I'm okay with like intentional espionage or something if that's part of like a mastery tree, but obviously it's just sort of stupid if someone can sit behind a tent and achieve the same effect. So I'm fine with letting people see the outlines of those players on screen and everything, as well as when you're trying to look for items and stuff, if the same happens with an item behind a tent or something, you want to be able to see that. So I'm going to go ahead and press Alt here, and I will warn you again, when I lift Alt up, it's going to lag like crazy. I can't tell you why. It's literally the same exact amount of lag for one object's outline versus 100 objects outline, so it's not the actual act itself, which is good. That's very good. It means that there isn't a problem with the system I'm using for it. It's just that there's this other kind of like ethereal thing that's causing a problem somewhere. It's probably the key I've chosen for it, so I might just have to shift it somewhere. I'm not sure what other key I'd use, but that's like a kind of minor thing. So I'm just letting you guys know this lag isn't like critically bad. It's understood, and I recognize why it's there. I just, I got this out literally in like 8 minutes probably, so I felt like I wanted to show this off. So anyway, I'm gonna hit Alt, and you can see it's gonna ding a few times, but it highlights everything on the map. So everything, every item, everything with the item type, I should say, and everything that's a child of that type is lit up in white. Down here you can see that the sky is also lit up in white, and these things do not yet go through tiles, but I can easily set the layer height of these outlines so that they just clip through buildings and such. So that's going to be set so that it's above everything else, so on your screen basically, rather than with everything else on the world layers, which is the idea, of course. And personally, I think it actually looks kind of cool in general. I might even use this for some like legendary items. Maybe you have like a green glow or something like that, legendary glow. That might be kind of cool, but that's for the future. For right now, I'm just using a white outline so that it can you can see it clearly enough. It's not pure white, but now when I let go of Alt, okay, okay, sometimes it doesn't lag, which is good, and that's also representative of the fact that it doesn't actually lag. In general, it's all client side too, so no one else would see anything on their screen, which is obviously good and intended, of course. So that's the idea. And I hope you guys appreciate that. Appreciate how fast that happened. I was just very excited to do that because someone mentioned ambient occlusion, I believe, for player sprites, so that if they walk behind something, it would just automatically pop up with like a crosshatch kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's not really something within my scope right now, specifically because I don't have a function to check whenever something is below another thing on a layer. That's something I would have to talk to Veek about. Like, it's an engine thing, not really something I can personally do, or at least it's not something I can do within, say, a week's time, which I think is already way too much time to spend on kind of a minor thing. So it's just not something I'm focused on, but I will mention it to Veek and see what I can do about that. For right now, I think this is a fine feature. I think that you can kind of get the gist of it already with this, and I think that having it on Alt in general isn't that bad of an idea. Again, that didn't lag. Weird. Okay. Maybe it's not as much of an issue as I thought. That's a good thing. Anyway, so we have, just going to go through here quickly. So Between the Waves exists. Fade in and out of the visible spectrum, blah blah blah. Basically, it's a buff that you activate, and whenever you activate it, when you get hit or whenever you take any damage whatsoever, you will turn invisible for, I believe, a second and a half, and the buff itself lasts around 12 seconds. And this also is triggered when you dash, so you can. Oh, it says the duration right here. I'm very stupid. Anyway, you can dash, and it turns you invisible during your dash, and for a little bit longer afterwards as well. If you get hit, it will also turn you invisible, and that goes for quick hits as well, so a tiny hit will turn you invisible, which is obviously the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and level myself up and then purchase this real quick. Okay. So that's that, and then I'm going to go down here. And of course, the prereqs, as I've said before, don't exist right now, or rather they do exist, but I've disabled them because I really hate having to buy 17 spells to get where I'm going. Obviously, if I had prereqs enabled, I would have to go through, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells to get to this one, so it's just not, Oh, actually, I do want to buy this one too. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to try to show off between the waves. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to use this guy over here. Ah, fuck. I enabled it a little bit too late. We might have to show that off later then. If I can get... Oh, there we go. So right now, I turn invisible for... It's about a half a second, or not half a second and a half. And as you saw, my hair and my eyes don't go with me. That's just because the fading algorithm I use to turn you invisible over however long I want isn't actually updated. It was something I made a while ago. I think when I was making Energetic Lunge, I did it. And obviously, that doesn't change your hair with it because that didn't exist back then. So very simple. I just have to add it so that it changes your overlays, transparencies as you move as well, of course. So no big deal. Just something I have to change, and I can go back and try to get him to hit me again, assuming he didn't wander off onto the end of the world. Don't think either there is. Okay, activate it and then go over here. Please hit me, or not. Hello. Oh, there we go. Okay. As you can see, eyes, eyes and hair stay there, as well as the ears. Actually, they don't. Any of the details or whatever that are attached to it don't go invisible. But again, not a really big issue to solve. Just something I didn't think about before showcasing it. So crawling field has also been updated. So if I can go ahead and put this down, you'll see it updates much faster. So it grows much faster. This is actually a kind of bad RNG. There we go. So every time it grows, there's a 1 in 2 chance that somewhere else on this line of vines or whatever. Also, these clip over top of the player. That's not really an issue with the vines themselves. It's more of an issue with the way the vines handle their colors, because you always want the colored vines to show above the green vines if they happen to overlap. But obviously, you don't want them to show above the player, so I just have to bump up the player layer a little bit. Anyway, they grow, I think, almost twice as fast, or rather, the delay between is half as fast, which I guess is twice as fast, but whatever. And also, every time it grows, there's, as I said, a 1 in 2 chance, or rather 50% chance, that a vine will grow somewhere else on the entire AOE of vines. So entire cluster of vines, I should say. So those function the same way. So if they step on that, then it'll hurt them. So the idea is that now it will kind of grow out bigger, beyond just the single line, as well as the initial cluster, which I think is good. I think it looks better visually, and I think I should even bump it up a little bit more. I don't want it to do too much. I don't want it to be too crazy, but I do like the idea of nature being able to kind of terraform the battlefield. And even though it might not have a huge amount of damage attached to it, I do want it to have kind of the feeling that you're trapped in by the crawling vines, because I feel like that's like a good nature aesthetic, because you can terraform the land you're fighting on and everything and use it to your advantage. So the second spell, I'm actually pretty happy with how this looks. It is called Vine Siphon. I'll open up the tree real quick and let you guys see. So, kind of Vine Siphon. You send out a wave of spiked vines in every direction. Anything hit will be dealt percentage HP damage alongside the base damage. You're healed proportionally. So, what this means is the base damage down here. So it does a base damage of 50, which does scale with your affinity, and then it does 1% HP damage, and then you heal for that 1% HP damage as well. I understand that sounds a little bit like a MOBA skill, but I do like the idea of it. So basically, the base damage you can scale with your affinity. However, the actual percentage damage is going to just be consistent. So it's, obviously, we wouldn't want that to scale because it'd just be absurd. Because even though, it's already scaling to increasing HP values because it's a percentage value, so you don't want to scale that. But anyway, you're essentially doing 2% of their HP because you're healing for that 1% as well. But I can go ahead and hit him real quick. As you can see, it ticks twice, and this has a really long cooldown for no reason, so it's going to be kind of hard to show off. But once it's closer, I'm going to level up a bunch so I can lower my max, or my current HP. Another thing to note here is that it's not max HP, it's current HP. So this is going to do a lot less if they're lower HP, and each tick of the burst can do this. So it's probably going to end up being lowered to something more like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, or 0.5 maybe percent current HP, just because it can tick multiple times. And that, I mean, you know, there, you could make the argument that it's too unbalanced to have it, to allow it to tick multiple times, but I think for right now I like the idea of it, especially with, you know, nature. You want, I mean, you have crawling vines, or crawling field rather, but that's not really enough of a deterrent, you know, to keep people moving in terms of, you know, while they're under entangling thorns. So you want to force people to move, but really crawling field, it's only like half the battlefield, so you don't really need to move that much. So I think that having a powerful close range spell that can do a lot of damage and a lot of healing can potentially kind of stir that in someone so that they're forced to move and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and level up real quick to show you guys the heal. If I go ahead and just hit him now, you see it bumps me up to 240, or it gives me 204 HP. I don't know what the lag is coming from right now, actually. That might be an issue with this spell. It seems to be going up and down. Is parallax disabled? Oh, you know what? No. So I realized just now that I didn't turn off parallax. I just reduced its speed to 0, which means that it's still looping over everything in every star in the world right now, which is a obvious issue. That's something I'll have to fix. But it does seem to have an issue with deleting these projectiles, maybe. So that's something to keep in mind. I should probably look into that. But regardless, you guys get the idea. Nature's supposed to be kind of a zoning tool tree. So, oh, and actually I should show you guys this too, assuming I don't lag too much. If I use between the waves and then dash, obviously I turn invisible and then I become visible again. This is probably going to last a little bit longer than that when you dash, so that there's some use besides, you know, that aesthetic value. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, light is meant to be focused on kind of light CC, but I feel like between the waves is probably pretty good for evading light CC in particular, because it's going to make it harder for someone to hit you. You'll still be able to target them, of course, because it's not going to affect their target outline, but it will make it more difficult to see where they are specifically, and more particularly, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to hit them with AoEs and everything, because you won't be able to see exactly where they are. So I'm hoping that kind of plays out as I expect. I don't want a constant invisibility spell. I feel like that's way too overpowered, or even like a large transparency effect or something that's constant. I feel like that's too strong as well. So I was kind of thinking about that, and I feel like this is a good balance. I feel like being able to periodically go fully invisible is much more balanced than being constantly partially invisible, just because it's less of a strain on the eyes too. You're not trying to look for somebody because you know they aren't there. You know, they're just, you just kind of deal with them being invisible for like a second or two, rather than caring about them being constantly half invisible or something. So that is all the time we have for today, unfortunately. It's actually a little bit over the time we have for today. So I'm trying not to go over too much. I don't want to get back to 16 minutes again, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Next time we should have a few more spells. I'm looking into getting Hal to do more, because I really like his work so far for the vines and everything, and the vines in general, magma, etc. It's just very good work, so very excited for that. I'm also, assuming we can do outfits, I'm going to look into doing melee stuff. I don't know if that's going to be in at launch. I will try my absolute best to get it in at launch. It's probably not going to be in the beta, whenever that is, sometime soon. So don't expect great things from melee just yet. However, it's going to be sometime soon. It's probably going to be the next thing I work on after outfits are done. So look forward to that. Not saying it's soon. It's going to be whenever outfits are done, which could be, you know, a month from now. I'm not sure. But, you know, I am focusing on it because I know a lot of you guys really want it. So, you know, I am paying attention. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys look forward to the next one. Have a good day. Bye.